Welcome to episode 544 of the Barcelona podcast, brought to you by the Blue Wire Podcast Network. I'm Dan Hilton, and I would like to welcome to the show for the first time a representative from the Penya Blaugrana London, Eduard Mañas, to the show. Nice to see you, Eduard.
Hi, thanks very much for inviting me to the show. I'm really excited.
Yeah, and unfortunately, while we do have a lot on the docket, your reason for coming on the show, we're going to get to right off the front. But yeah, a few things on the docket today, previewing the Spanish Super Cup, some listener questions that were dangling from a few weeks in the past. But first, as I said, unfortunately, we begin with a rather sad subject. On January the 4th, the Bar&Co, where the Penya Blaugrana London watched the matches, the Bar&Co sunk. So since that time, it has been great to see the outpouring of support. But if possible, Eduard, can you provide some context on how people can continue to help out and what's next for the Penya and the Bar&Co and kind of what's next for all these different parties?
Yeah, it's really sad news, to be honest. So a little bit of context is Penya Blaugrana London, which we are the official supporters of Football Club Barcelona in London. We had been meeting at Bar&Co for the last 15 years to watch the matches. I mean, it's 2008, right? So the first, as a matter as an anecdote, the first match that we saw at Bar&Co was the first Guardiola La Liga match. So that's how far back our relationship with Bar&Co goes. And very sadly, Bar&Co sank on the Thames last Thursday. So it was really a lot of our Penya members. They were really distraught to see so many memories, so many happy times that we've lived at Bar&Co down under the water. But very quickly as well, it's the human tragedy of the people of Bar&Co. Because Bar&Co it was a family business mostly. Their main business was parties, and it was like a restaurant business. And there were a few people that directly depended on it. So aside from the Peña that had been our home for so long, as well as there is people that now they're unemployed. The owners, for example, they've lost all their all the savings went into Bar&Co. I mean, it's a small company. I remember when I saw the first picture. So the Bar&Co sank around 12:30, but I didn't actually learn of that until maybe 4:30 or something like that, when one of our Peña members saw the picture in social media. That they were talking about a boat that sank in the Thames, and then God, that's Bar&Co. So he posted it in a WhatsApp group, and that was really met with incredulity. Is that a fake? It looks very real for being a fake. So what I did was to ring up the owner and the poor guy. I mean, he was he couldn't talk. I mean, he was completely distraught, as you can imagine. To see your livelihood going down into the Thames, and he said, "Listen, I cannot talk right now, but I confirm, the Bar&Co has sank. Fortunately, and this is a good news, is there were not personal injuries." Which I mean, within the whole tragedy is good news, but nonetheless, it's tragic. So the what we started doing in the Peña is to how can we help the people of Bar&Co, and then we set up a crowdfunding campaign in order to raise awareness of this, and also in order to help them out whatever way we can. And I mean, we're overwhelmed by the support from all over the world, especially from the Barça family. Lots of Peñas have helped out. A lot of Barça fans that maybe they would have come to London to visit, and they came to our Peña to watch the Barça match, and they were extremely welcome there by the Peña, by the Bar&Co staff. They always were extremely welcoming. So many of these people also, they have been chipping in with the with helping out. I mean, we're overwhelmed. The owners are also absolutely overwhelmed, and they don't have words to thank. I was actually talking to the owner today, and they don't have words to thank all the love and support that they've received these days.
Well, that those efforts hopefully will not be stopping anytime soon. Those links for the crowdfunding and stuff, that's down in the description or the show notes. Again, that's why I would just want to bring light to this. Again, this is the Penya family and FC Barcelona. It's supposed to be one community, and of course, when one Penya gets a little bit of bad news, you expect the rest to kind of raise all ships, if you will, and try to help out and see what we can do from there. Also
Yeah.
mentioned too, the Penya Blaugrana London was the old Pena of Frances Tomas, of course, who was my co-host when we began the show way back in the day.
Indeed,
Of
indeed,
course.
Francesc. Yeah, he was. He had been when he was living in London. He was one of our Penya members, and yeah, he's a very nice guy.
Yeah. So the Bar&Co goes back to the very first episode of this show. So again, the show notes and the description have the crowdfunding and those links down there. So now I'm going to shift our attention. We're going to talk a little bit about, of course, FC Barcelona, the first team and all that, and we shift our attention to Saudi Arabia now. There was a time, again, like when I started this podcast, when the Spanish Super Cup was a bit an afterthought because FC Barcelona was winning other trophies and the like, and thinking the Champions League was very possible. But it does seem pretty important at the moment, Eduardo, for Xavi to win another trophy at this point with the way that the season is going so far. So, as far as jumping right into the Spanish Super Cup talk, how imperative do you think it is that Barcelona win the Spanish Super Cup, and what that
Well,
means
I think,
for them, I guess?
yeah, I think it's more imperative from the money point of view than from the results point of view, because we desperately need the money, and I think that the winning, I think, is 6 million euros reaching the final plus 1 point something million. And maybe you can get the exact figures for winning it, right? So that's desperately Barca needs that. Of course, from the point of view of the team and getting into the right mindset, and God knows they do need it. That would be a big morale boost to win the Super Cup, either against Real Madrid or Atletico. I don't know what. No, I think they're playing today. I don't know how they're doing, but um, but what the main issue of Barcelona right now, I don't think is we've got bad players. I think the team is not performing as it should, and I think the players don't have the right mindset as they should. So it's really gaining a bit of confidence and getting a trigger, and I'm sure that they will click into the team and start playing as I know they can play. And maybe the Super Cup might do that for us.
Well, as we're recording this right now, the second half just started between Real Madrid and Atletico Madrid. It's 2-2 at the moment. So, well, yeah, we'll keep updating that. Likely, we'll end the podcast before that reaches its final. But yeah, we know how that's going to go. So, as far as who should start, that's always a question that I think everybody always asks. And to me, it seems pretty because of the injuries to Cancelo, and it seems pretty obvious as to I think the 11 who's going to start. Of course, Iñaki Penya in net, but I think it seems like the waves are going back to the idea of, back from last season with Balde, Christensen, Araujo, and Kunde. And then in the midfield, to me, it seems like Roberto is going to get this start along with Gundogan and De Jong, and then Torres, Lewandowski, and that last spot, whether it's Rafinha or Lamine Yamal. I totally understand the argument for Rafinha, but this is one of those, against Osasuna at least, one of those rare starts I would give Lamine Yamal. Do you find any different between the 11 that I just gave you? Or, I mean, and we don't know about Balde's status either. It seems like he's going to be healthy, but that we have another question about Hector Fort as well and his Copa del Rey display. But I would still think that Balde is going to start if available.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds all right. I mean, again, I think all these in the striking force, for example, between Rafinha or Lamine Yamal. I love Lamine Yamal, so for me, he should just start. In there, Rafinha, he's a great player, but I suppose he was a great player at Leeds. In Barca, he's been struggling to be that same great player. that he promised at Leeds. So yeah, I mean, he could start instead of Lamine Yamal. Personally, I think our youngsters deserve to start playing more and showing off, because they are ultimately the future.
Well, I mentioned Hector Fort. So again, with Balde, after his Copa del Rey display, and I do tend to give a lot of focus to the academy kids, and so I kind of want to temper expectations while also saying that I don't know, maybe Hector Fort would start if Balde isn't 100% instead of trying to, we'll say, throw different things against the wall, because you'd think the other idea I would assume would be Sergio Roberto would start at left back. So the question is, would you start Hector Fort or Sergio Roberto at left back? But then who do you start in the midfield? Well, it'd be Order Romeu, and you kind of go down the depth chart that way. Or the other option, as one of our listener questions came in here for asking about the positioning, QT asked, should we change from a 4-3-3 to a different formation? The answer to that would be no, but he also brought up, would Rafinha start as an interior in this situation? And I think against an Osasuna team that has been pretty solid, not as solid as they were last season, but Osasuna, again, they have a good defensive shape. They move really well from that medium block. They get out on the counterattack. So would you be, again, how comfortable would you be with the idea of starting Rafinha as the high right interior instead of Sergio Roberto in that setup?
Starting Rafinha instead of Sergio Roberto
as the high interior. Yep.
Well, I mean, in the striking, in the strikers, as a striker, you mean?
No, I would say if you start Ferran Torres, Lewandowski, Lamine Yamal, and then again in that midfield three, you start Gundogan and De Jong as a double pivot. Would you be comfortable starting Rafinha as the other midfielder, as like that high right interior midfielder?
Rafinha, yeah. I mean, Rafinha is, despite what I just said, Rafinha, he's a great player. I mean, but for example, if you ask me between Rafinha and Lamine Yamal, I want Lamine, Lamine to play. Right? He's a good player. He still needs to learn more. He's very young. He's 16, but I think he's capable to play at Barca's level. But Rafinha is a fantastic player. I mean, Sergi Roberto. I mean, it's an anecdote. In the Penya, people start to sweat when they hear Sergi Roberto, especially at the back. So he's been a Barca player for a long time. I really love him to bits. But yeah, I mean, probably I think that Rafinha is probably a better bet.
Do you think Sergio Roberto's, with the reports this week, do you think he's actually going to get renewed?
He always just about makes the cut in the decision making. In that we're not going to renew him. We're not going to renew him. And in the end, he just makes it. And I don't know from the top of my head how long his contract is, whether it runs till the end of the season or next season. But yeah, I mean, I suppose he can play. He can get you out of of a bad situation, especially when you've got too many injuries, because he's very he can play many different places, right? And he's a player that is Barcelona through and through. However, the questions are about maybe his quality.
Well, his contract is up in June, so they would have to renew him, and he could be a free agent at this point, and we are a similar age. We're born a few months apart, Sergio Roberto and I. And as far as him being too old or things, and you with your Catalan background, that would be the one thing I would say about keeping Sergio Roberto around, is that institutional, not even his versatility about what he can do on the field, because you'd hope that Barcelona in the summer months, I mean, not necessarily in January here, but in the summer months, they've recouped just a little bit of income where they can reinforce the squad again, because that's what last summer felt like after 2 years ago with Lewandowski, Koundé, and the levers being projected, and then bringing in those big talents and things like that, and then having to pay for that for the next few seasons. So with last summer being what it was, knowing you weren't going to bring in much, but trying your best to fortify the bench. And I would say that this coming summer, you'd hope it's the same thing, where you have the core of your squad, with Gabi hopefully getting healthy and Pedri maybe potentially getting healthy someday, but you have your core of your squad now built, and you're in theory you're 11 to 14 players that Xavi trusts. And then this summer also is another way to fortify the squad and bring in a few extra players. And my only thing about Sergio Roberto for another year is that because yes, the academy is bringing through Balde, and remember Gabi is Andalusian. He's not, and Pedri is from Las Palmas. So I just, as important as that Catalan identity has been to the squad, now you're having captains for the first time, and I went back to it, and it was the late '90s since the last time that the majority of your main captains were not of Catalan origin. So I think there is something important about having that Catalan connection as one of your captains. And, again, being your first captain, you'd expect that player to play, but it also isn't essential, right? But to have a player like that in the locker room, and Xavi, of course, being Catalan as well, is helpful for the identity of the squad. But you also don't know how long he'll stick around or what kind of leash he has if he doesn't win any trophies this season. So I don't know. As dumb as it sounds, I think as at the number that he would accept, because I believe that he's always lived in Barcelona, he's never been anywhere else. So I feel like if you offer him two million or something, or 2.5 mil to carry on for another season and kind of represent, just be a Catalan captain, with the expectations that he'll play 10 to 15 times next season. It sounds so crazy that I'm arguing for Sergio Roberto, but to me, again, I feel like his importance is so much more of him off the field than what he actually represents on the field. Because I think, again, you're renewing him not as a player, but I mean, because the other argument I would make is that this season there's only 19 first team players registered. Because again, Lamine Yamal and Fermin Lopez have youth numbers. So you only have 19 first teamers. So, it's not that crazy that if you even up that number to 25, that means you've brought in 5 additional first team players in the summertime, which I don't think Barcelona is going to have the money to do. And again, one of those players, again, renewing, is just Sergio Roberto, and he's one of your 25 first team numbers. And again, it doesn't mean that he needs to take a spot or minutes from Fermin Lopez, because we've seen that this season, that Fermin Lopez has been chosen, and we didn't even mention him as a potential starter instead of Roberto, right? So really the argument might be, instead of Rafinha, you start Fermin Lopez instead of Sergio Roberto. So I'm not too worried about Sergio Roberto kind of sticking around if the number is right.
No, it's not crazy at all. I mean, what you've said. I think actually the reason why he got renewed, last time was because he accepted that he wasn't going to be playing on the starting up team. He was going to be. He's giving more to the team than the what he gives in the pitch. I think he gives a lot of behind in the dressing room. As you said, explain the culture of Barcelona to the new joiners. I'm sure he puts a lot in the during training. He can pass on a lot of the experience as well that he's been building, and plus, he's going to be renewing for less money than he might be making in other teams. I mean that's a given. So if he renews, it's going to be on those bases. I'm sure that he's going to be happy, and more likely than not, Barcelona is going to be happy as well. Because again, he can get you out of bad luck with injuries, and Barcelona seems to be very prone to bad luck with injuries very often. And he might just score a couple of goals and win you a game as well, right? So we'll see what the summer it gives you. But one interesting bit that you were mentioning about signings of Barcelona is we didn't. I'm actually quite proud. We didn't spend any money. Well, I think it was only 4 or 5 million for Oriol Romeu this summer. I think that Antwerp is the second team in the Champions League from the bottom of signing ups. I think they spent like 17 million euros. So we managed to do a competitive team. A competitive team with within our means, because we don't have the money. The other question is, I think we do have a good players. It's just we've got a worse team than the players we've got, right? So usually, I mean, we don't have top players like we had during the Guardiola years and the Champions Leagues. But we have still above average players, I think. But for that, in order to win titles like La Liga or to progress to the Champions League much further up, you need the team to step up. And that's the job of the coach. It's either mentally, well, it's mentally for sure, and tactically as well, and make sure that the players understand the tactics the team, the coach wants them to play as. And for some reason, he's not getting there. Right? So I'm not. I mean, actually, I love Xavi, and I think he's the right coach for Barcelona. It's just he hasn't found the formula to make this team tick. He's been trying to hitting a wall for the last few months. So at some point, hopefully, he'll get through. But let's hope that sooner rather than later.
Mhm. Well, I have to ask a question as we were talking about the money and the summertime and things like that. A question that I know the answer to, but I just have to ask it anyway because it's been coming up. So Ronald Araujo is being linked to a 100 million euro move to Bayern Munich, but it seems like he doesn't want to go. Totally makes sense. But if you're Juan Laporta and company, do you consider that move if Araujo might change his mind? Because I think we all understand that 100 million euros being brought in would certainly help Barcelona quite a bit in terms of their financial issues. So 100 million for Araujo, again, he's not going, so this is a hypothetical. He doesn't want to go. But let's say that Juan Laporta and stuff want. I mean, they tried to change Frankie De Jong's mind in the last 2 summers, and he was pretty steadfast. So, yeah, would you try to change Araujo's mind if that meant that you'd solve your financial issues?
See, our problem, the answer is no, right? But our problem is that Barca is a team that doesn't know how to sell and doesn't know how to buy, right? So we buy high, we sell low. And whenever we sell high, we don't know what to do with the money. And maybe if we sold Araujo, that he's a Barca through and through player, that first, I wouldn't sell him because of that, right? But even if we sell him for 100 million euro, and then we've got the Neymar example of how to throw away to the waste bin 230 million euros. So we sold Neymar. We bought two players that I mean Coutinho that it's no comments on Coutinho and Dembele that it was really we threw the money out. We overpaid like 2 or 3 times his value, and then you end up replacing one player for two, and with no money left. If anything, you end up paying more, and you're worse off. So with Araujo, probably will happen the same. We would get 100 million. Spend those 100 million two other players to defend us, and one 35-year-old and the other one, God knows what. Araujo is the future of Barca's defense. Is the pique of for the next years to come. So I wouldn't sell him.
Well, yeah, I mean, in terms of that argument about selling players when they're worth something and before it's too late. So with Araujo and Pedri having their injury issues that they've had, the idea would be, yeah, if you're going to ever sell Pedri for a major number and his highest value, it would probably be this kind of summer because you don't know at 21 years old, 2021, how much more injured will Pedri be? Where will his career be down the line? Again, he just like Ansu Fati, just like Gabi, even that when you start your career at 16, injuries add up. And those injured players that get hurt, I mean, Michael Owen, again, there's so many examples of these 16, 17-year-olds who start too early, play too much first team football, and then they have a hard time getting healthy in their careers. So the idea, again, I've said many, many times, I've done full videos on just about Pedri and his importance to Barcelona. I think he's a future still of Barcelona, and Pedri is just so essential. Same thing with Araujo. I don't sell him. But again, at 24, and a player that has been injured every year of his career in Ronald Araujo, again, this is the summer you sell him because I don't think he'll ever be worth 100 million euros again. This would be the moment to that point, right? So it's just that's the kind of argument that Barcelona, especially with the financial issues they have, they need to keep their talent, right? Because Barcelona, it's that cycle, right? Where if you want to win trophies and you want to succeed and make money, you have to have the best players. And so you don't sell your best players in Araujo and Pedri because you need them to win trophies. But again, if you want to sell them at their highest value, you have to sell them before they're not worth as much as they would be. I
But
mean, Yeah,
But the problem is when you sell them at the highest value, is what do you do with that money?
correct.
And history, has proven time and time again that when we sell a player for a lot of money, then when you go and knock at the door of other teams, they ask for 3 times the other player's worth,
Right.
and Barca pays it. So I don't know. I wouldn't sell. I do agree with, yes. If you want to make money, like Borussia Dortmund, for example, you need to sell when the players are hot in the market. That's how you make the money. That's when you sell a high. But Barca, I mean, it doesn't know how to do it, because when the players are hot, we want them because we're a winning team with a winning mentality. So no, I wouldn't sell Araujo.
Yeah, I mean, I'd also say wages are a huge important part of this too, because again, like Frankie De Jong, the reason why, if anything, that he wasn't able to be sold, or yes, of course, it was his choice and he refused to be sold, but it was also much harder to move him at his number, 37.5 mil in a season. No team reasonably, no team is going to do that. And as much as people do complain about Rafinha and Ferran Torres, the one argument that differentiates them from even Dembele and Coutinho is that they fit in the wage structure, because Dembele, even his wages were so high, with the exception of that last year when he renewed. That last year he renewed, he fit the wage structure, and he, not say he lowered his price, but if anything, he did not accept some kind of, because he found out that the market, there really wasn't a market for him. So his wages in the season were lower than they would have been in theory based on the contract that he had signed initially. All right. So the only thing to close off this conversation about money, because I'm tired of talking about the money, Barcelona will get 6 mil for just participating in the Spanish Super Cup. Then the winners will get, as you mentioned, an additional 1.5 million. The runner-up will get 1 million. So really not a big difference other than a trophy between, it's 500,000. That's all we're talking.
That's true, isn't it? Where's the motivation to win? It's okay. You
Correct.
say no, 500,000, is it? But for a player that they, nearly they earned that in a couple of weeks, isn't
Well,
it?
yeah,
So
and with all the injuries as well between Cancelo and Pedri, you don't want to force them into a final, because again, the difference is the two losing semifinals will both get 750,000 each. So you're only talking about 700. I know it's a lot, but it's not 750,000 being the difference. Again, when you talk about gate revenue, just getting a few more people to Montjuic for a month would be, more than make up for that. Okay, so let's do a few more questions here from Out of Element. Ask, should Xavi give Guiu some starts or at least some more playing time, bring him on for 60 or 70 minutes in for Lewandowski? Because I think people are already beginning an argument and kind of a conversation about Marc Guiu and Vitor Roque and their time, and kind of figuring out a way to get both of them assimilated to the first team as soon as possible.
yeah, I mean, the thing is, Marc Guiu, he's 18, isn't he?
17.
Yeah, he's 18, 18, isn't it? He's 18, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is Victor Roque? I think he's 18 as well.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Happy birthday to Marc Guiu. Just turned 18 January
Oh,
4th.
so he's just 18. So, I mean,
That's right.
they're, yeah, I mean, they're so talented. But then again, talent is one thing, but you need experience. So, I'm concerned. I mean, is Victor Roque and Marc Guiu compatible up front? So it's a lot of talent, but can you have two inexperienced players playing at highest level together? Maybe yes, the odd time out, or the odd time, but maybe not consistently. So you still need the Lewandowskis and maybe even Ferran Torres, although he's been a bit unlucky for the last few years. But definitely, my preference always is the cantera. Is Marc Guiu. I like the guy, right? So really, I want him to succeed at Barcelona. He should have more minutes, 100%. Lewandowski, he's personally, I think he's getting older, and I don't think he's getting any better. So hopefully, maybe he'll stay another year. He needs to start transferring as many skills and experience as possible to Marc Guiu and also Vitor Roque. And the lads need to learn as fast as possible. So yeah, I think Lewandowski is still the rock of the striking force, but the youngsters need to start stepping up. And who is going to be? I mean, it's too early to say for Vitor Roque because I don't know him very well. He's just starting to settle down in the team in the city. He's a young Brazilian. He's too young, from my point of view, to be signed up as 30 million. I think 60 million altogether. It's 30 million fixed, 30 variables. Which, knowing Barça, those 30 million variables is probably just to breathe, and you get the 30 million. So he's going to have the same pressures as Dembele had, because a lot of the issues and critiques of Dembele is that he didn't have the breathing room of growing as a youngster when he arrived, because he had the 100 million euro mark on his head. And then, rightly so, the Barca fans demanded a lot more than maybe they should have demanded for the experience that player had. And Victor Roque is not the same as Dembele, but still, I mean, having 60 million label with 18 being 18, it's probably a little bit too much.
Well, I think we can be careful with that. I have seen that some of those incentives are Ballon d'Or related, so and trophy related. So I think that Barcelona is a little bit safe for that for a little
That's
bit of
it.
time.
They never publish them, do they?
No, you don't. So you just it's all hearsay. I agree with that. No, I'm gonna actually zag a little bit. Again, I'm always, I constantly am on tooting the horns for the academy kids, but I actually think Marc Guiu this season has been handled almost perfectly. I think, as we mentioned, he just turned 18 last week, so down in he just scored a hat trick as well, the Copa del Rey match against the Celta de Vigo Bay, the same day that Barcelona against Barbastro. So yeah, while you watch the Barbastro, you're like, oh, of course, Marc Guiu, he had a hat trick with the Copa del the Juvenil A. He probably could have been used as a first team, and that's a good opportunity to start him instead of having to again throw Lewandowski and Gundogan on in the second half to save a match that you should have beat a fourth division side pretty easily, and disappointing there. But for Marc Guiu, again, I think that him at his age and where he is in his progression, again, he's grown into his body very quickly. And there are other players in the academy as well. I think there's a 16-year-old Oscar Gustau who's also grown he's really tall already, grown very quickly. So you do have to give those kind of tall, big, the ones that grow into their bodies quicker, you need to still give them a little bit of time. Even though he looks the part, again, he's already scored 2 first-team goals. And I actually love the way that he's been on the field, scored his first-team goals at what he was 17 at the time, now 18. So I would actually say just continue to take a breath with him. He's barely played for Barça B or Barça Athletic as well. He's not even their striker. Their striker is Pau Victor, who Barcelona is now considering at least even selling or paying his release clause and then bringing him in because he scored 11 goals himself. And Rafa Marquez is in a good spot with him as a striker for Barça Athletic. So again, I think Marc Guiu has been, every time he's incorporated in the first team is good news, and that's exciting. But I'm also not concerned if he's playing with the U19s or Barça Athletic or wherever he's getting time is where he's getting time. And again, he also went to the U17 World Cup this season. So I'm totally fine with the minutes he's getting. At his age, again, 17, 18, you give him as much time as he can whenever he's available, whoever he's playing with, and I'm totally fine with it. So I would say, to me, I see it as Vitor Roque's time overlapping with Lewandowski. Think of it as like a linear timeline. The timeline that Vitor Roque and Lewandowski are overlapping, if anything, to me, Vitor Roque and Xavi's desire to play him with Lewandowski, he's taking João Felix's minutes. That's who's not coming back from all this. Because again, Lewandowski is likely going to be around next season at his number. If he chooses to stay, I believe it's a player option. So he'll be around, even if he's not up to it, we'll say. But I think it's Vitor Roque taking João Felix's minutes or Ferran Torres' minutes on that left wing. And then again, when Lewandowski kind of rotating with him as well. And then again, whatever time Marc Guiu gets, Marc Guiu, then he's on the field for. But yeah, I think Vitor Roque is more eating into João Felix than he is even Lewandowski, because as I've said, as a broken record, Barcelona will win this season trophies based on Lewandowski scoring. I know that he's frustrated.
He's not scoring right now. That's the problem.
But he has to. Like, again, any pressure you put on, if you expect Ferran Torres, Rafinha, and João Felix and Vitor Roque to be the four that score you the trophies, that's not going to be the case. even Gundogan. It's going to be Lewandowski. He's got to score goals, or Barcelona are not winning the Liga, Barcelona are not winning the Champions League, Barcelona not winning Copa del Rey. And I mean, Spanish Super Cup is just two matches. So, like last season, Gabi and
Yeah, who
Pedri
knows?
fired them to the trophy. So, Rafinha might get hot in two games and you win the Spanish Super Cup. But yeah, to me, I think there are minutes for everybody, Lewandowski, Marc Guiu, and Vitor Roque, because to me, it's three different circumstances for the rest of the season as to who's getting those minutes and where they're getting those minutes.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I agree with that. I mean, to be honest, my main concern, I think that Marc Guiu, he needs to play as much as he can. But then on the other side of the question is, for example, what's happened to players like Ansu Fati or Gavi or Pedri, that they're players that they start playing at the highest level from such an early age. I think Ansu Fati started at 16 as well. Gavi and Pedri as well in the 17s. And 3 years or 2 3 years down the line, they keep getting injuries left, right, and center. So I don't know if maybe we made them play too much, because I cannot understand how such young players. Because when you're young, I remember, it's not never at this level, right? But I was able to play a football match. Start with my friends at 5 o'clock, and we were still playing at 9 p.m. But they're getting too injured. Why? I don't know. Maybe is the way how they train. Maybe it's the medical staff, or maybe they're overloaded.
Well, I would argue that Balde's regression this year might be a little bit of too many minutes last season, becoming the starter at what was he, 19 at the time, and throwing him out there game in and game out. And I think Balde's had a little bit of a regression in that way and hasn't gone the way he's gone. And a little update we have here. If you're listening to this, it's been hours after the fact, but Atletico Madrid in the 80th minute, this is just for you, have scored. So it's 3-2.
Oh, yes.
By Kepa, the goalkeeper. But all right, so last question here again. So I'm hoping that we end the show on a good note again. The last question here is about Lamine Yamal and kind of continuing this conversation. So Out of Element asks, what's going on with Lamine Yamal? He looked extremely dangerous in his first few games and has kind of petered out. But actually, the advanced metrics really like Lamine Yamal in his now limited time, because he's now playing less per 90, but he still has a reasonable and similar number as key passes and big chances created in a similar time frame per 90. So actually, the advanced metrics are often kind to him. And to that point, as I said with Lamine Yamal this season, any minutes he plays are positive. I think even throughout this first half of the season, I am totally comfortable with, he took the starting spot from Rafinha for a little bit. But again, Rafinha should have been the default starter. Like, that was more of an indictment of Rafinha being completely out of form and not being trusted at the moment. But Rafinha since then has been reasonable enough in his playing time that he's, not even taking the starting spot back. But you have to have Rafinha be this. It's the same argument with Lewandowski. They have to be the starters. They have to, make their money and deserve their spot, because Lamine Yamal, his time will come. So again, if anything, I'm looking at the advanced metrics about his, expected goals and things like that, and they have been just fine in the chances that he's created. I will also say some of the regression might be because, opposing teams now have film on him. They've now been able to watch him. They now understand, or limit him a little bit. But I've been completely fine, and I am not in any way worried about a 16-year-old. Again, he was 15 in the summertime, turned 16 in July. So he is 16 for this entire season. He's not even 17 until next year. So again, any minutes he gets, I would love to keep him under or around 2,000 minutes. Anything more than that, I think you've probably played him too much. So I'm totally fine with him, with his spot starts, with his moments. Again, I would probably start him against Osasuna, and then he likely won't start for the rest of January. And that's how I would kind of see Lamine Yamal's playing time for the next few weeks, and continue to throw him out to kind of unbalance things at the end of games. And that's his role. So, I kind of push that away a little bit, that, it looks like he's not really having an effect, but he also is playing a lot less minutes. And it would be lovely if he scored a few more goals. He's hit the crossbar and the post quite a bit too. So, he's inches away from having already scored 3-4 goals this season, as opposed to just the one that he did. And I would hope that by the end of the season, he has scored 3 goals. That would be my hope from January to May, that you get maybe, 3 to 4 goals out of him, and he finally, gets those on frame as opposed to hitting the post. But yeah, I actually am not too worried about Lamine Yamal at all.
No, it's. I mean, just think about it. I mean, anybody over the age of 30, and I am, right? What were you doing when you were 16? Well, definitely I wasn't playing at the level of Lamine Yamal. I didn't have the same pressures of Lamine Yamal. I mean, it's unbelievably how young he is. I mean, it's unheard of in the last 150 years of football that a 16-year-old was playing at this level. I think as you were saying, anything that Lamine can play, that's welcome. He'll get the experience, but he shouldn't get too stressed that he's not a Messi or he's not a Lewandowski, because I think the main danger is that he's not managed properly, and the expectations is that he should be performing at a much higher level than what's reasonable for his age, and he ends up, let's say, like Ansu Fati. That then he goes from big injury to big injury because, from my point of view, he wasn't properly managed. And then at 20, your career is an uphill battle, right? Which is what's and I love Ansu. I think he was our next Messi, but really, it's a lot of people fail him. And I think that for Lamine, that he's our next Messi as well. We really need to be very careful how he progresses.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you're out of the game by 25, 26, like a reminder about Lamine Yamal, because I saw a terrible story out from some kind of one of those rags magazines about how, his life off the field is now like in the fast lane. And A, is that's complete nonsense. They're just trying to put pressure on the kid. But B, he's also still in school. Remember, like the kids who are
16.
teenagers still getting tutored or in classes. You know what I mean? Like imagine just how you'd be in class at that age, and for me in high school here, and you're just kind of we would wear our jerseys sometime on game day, so you're wearing your jersey, you see your teammates in the hallways, and you're getting ready for the game later that afternoon or night. But imagine he's sitting in class now with a tutor or with a because they have private teachers, but he's sitting with a private teacher trying to learn about spelling or arithmetic or whatever he's working on, and now he's thinking about that game that night at the Camp Nou. Right. I mean, that's the different thing that he has to do on a day-to-day basis and the balance he has to have. So I would, lay off him until he gets some kind of, even his the junior degree or whatever he gets at that age.
We need to give him breathing space, basically, and try to get some of the heat off Lamine Yamal. That would be my advice.
Yep. That's what I would say. And I think that's a good way to end it because unfortunately, looks like Real Madrid have equalized in the 86 minutes.
Come on.
I know. So, yeah,
we
have to
do it.
Bad news. But tomorrow, as a programming note, I will have the 5 headlines for the semifinal against Osasuna. That'll be out later in the evening. So, again, hopefully people had enough time to listen to this. But again, the most important reason I had Eduardo on again was to remind you to help crowdfund and contribute to the Bar&Co again with the greater family. And then again, if you are in London, Blaugrana London, again, you guys will be continuing on. So where can people find you? And by that I mean the Penya and getting Penya Blaugrana London now.
Yeah, I mean it's now that because we've lost our home, so now it's going to be sometime we're going to have to start looking into all the potential candidates to be our Penya base. And I don't know. I mean, the issue with London is a premier city, so it's going to be hard to find a second base. But no, it's going to be our main base. But the Penya will continue going. We'll find a place, or even will be temporary. Going from one place will be a bit nomad from one pub to another pub. But we'll be gathering to watch the matches, and we'll be promoting Barça as always do.
Yeah, so again, check out Penya Blaugrana London across all the different social medias. You guys are really good with your communication. So again, you can find them, and then you can find me on X or Twitter or whatever, Instagram at the Barcelona Pod, and then Patreon as well, close Facebook group, merch store, all that different stuff is how you could support my show and all that stuff as well. So thanks so much for listening to the show. Until next time, we'll talk to you soon. Forza Barça.